I am Tron, the Immortal, Organic, Digital, Electric, Silica Shaman. This story is so absurd and so insane to listen to, yet it seems to be so. There are a species of people on this planet that are immortal, and they created themselves. There are so many ways to tell this story. So many places to start and to explain it and to tell you the process. And me saying this doesn't matter, because the amount of people that would even attempt or think this is anything but just some ridiculous story or some crazy notion, no one would believe it. No one could believe this. No one would want to. Yet, if we look into all the stories, the lore, the history, the heritage, when we start to unearth things and we get into all of these concepts and these teachings and the mystery schools, and get into all even the stories of the wars and these giants that might have been here, and what's beyond the ice wall, and is there a dome, and what about these Asian people, and what about the Caucasians and the melanated, and then we talk about these wars, and we get into the Vikings, and where did the red hair come from? What about the red bloods and the blue bloods? And if I make it simple for you, I don't know how long I'm going to go on with this story right here. This might be a few parts long. I might just tell you a portion of the story and have you decipher the rest for yourself, or I might tell the whole thing. I don't know how much energy I have in me to explain it all, because it really would take a very long time to make all of the connections. It would basically be all of the work that I've done and shown. But it boils down to this one idea, and it's that the immortals made themselves. They understood alchemy, and they performed the alchemy on themselves. The great work was done upon themselves, literally, with the systems around them, and that they built and integrated the organic system into themselves and became part of it. Now, this sounds so absurd and so crazy, but imagine, if you will, that there are two systems. Now, I've talked about this before in the sun worshipping cults and the moon worshipping cults. I've talked about it in a way of the densities. I've talked about it in a way of giving you an idea about what salt is beneath your feet in the inorganic world. I've told this in a lot of different ways, and this idea here is that there's a carbon system and a silica system. Now, for some of you, you might go, that's nothing new. Oh yeah, we know about Silicon Valley and we know about carbon. I'm just going to jump around here and give you a few ideas, because it all webs together. So melanin is interesting in this connection too. But I'm going to give you a couple of things that I'm going to see if I can guide you to decipher it for yourself. Who works in Silicon Valley? What kind of people? Asian people. Asian cultures. People like India. India is part of Asia. But mostly Asian people, like the real deal, like Chinese, you'd say, or the Japanese, these people. And what do you know about them? What can we understand about their people? Well, I mean, we can get into the Khan. It means king, like Genghis Khan, it means the king. And Genghis might have something to do with the Ganges, or the Ganges. Very interestingly, the connection between Genghis Khan and even the far reaches of India and the Ganges River. But you know that in their cooking, they eat a lot of bamboo. They eat bamboo shoots. There's a connection to bamboo in all of their artwork. Think about this. What is bamboo made of? It's made of silica. It's made of silica. Your hair and your fingernails, they're the fastest growing thing on your body. They continue to grow. They say it even continues to grow after the body dies. Very curious. And bamboo is the fastest growing grass out there. It's like, and it's extremely strong. Bamboo. It's so connected to that culture. It's made of silica. What is Silicon Valley? What is silica and silicon? What are quartz crystals made of? If you were to guess silica, you'd be correct. And those quartz crystals which are on computers, where else do we find crystals? In Mother Gaia, in the earth. The earth is made of crystals. There's caves. And if we know that we can connect computers via crystals, and we can connect watches, the first watches were made with quartz crystals. The story starts to kind of come to life about what is your body made of? What do you think's in your bones? They tell you you're a carbon-based creature. Well, maybe not. Maybe there's more than one species here. Literally. That, not that someone flew in from outer space, although maybe that happened. And when I say outer space, maybe outside of the dome, there's other domes of people that were giants that walked through over an icy plain and came into a door, into an entryway into what is the land of what we would call Earth or Gaia. Maybe all these things happen, but certainly we can see transmutation happen. We see different blood types. And I've talked about this at length about blood types. And the connection to, here are the elements that I'm going to explain to you, and I'm going to make it very clear. The human blood type is said to have at the center of the atom within what our blood is, the atomic, the thing in the middle there, that it surrounds it, is said to be iron. We're said to be iron rich. Now that's very curious, because if you look at the plant world, all of the green things, consider bamboo. Consider all of these plants which are very strong and powerful, and they grow in the sun. There's a connection I'm going to make here in a little while with the sun and the moon. These plants, in the chlorophyll, in their blood plasma, in the atom within a plant, the center of it is made of magnesium. The only difference between the plant and the human is that inside of the plant is magnesium. Magnesium inside that versus iron. What do we know about iron? It's heavy, it's dense, and it rusts. Magnesium doesn't rust. A plant doesn't rust. And in fact, if we were to leave a plant in the sun and give it water, it would continue to grow. The only thing that extracts anything or kills something is the moon. Now, let me go a little farther here. The sun, if you were to leave something out in the sun, you can sun-dry fruit. It doesn't go bad. If you let it out in the moon, what happens? It will become moldy. Why? Well, if we go out in the sun and we put a thermometer in the sunlight, I'm going to say 100 degrees in the sun, and in the shade it would be about 90 degrees. Be a 10-degree difference. So be it, about that. Now if we go into the moonlight, we would see maybe it's 80 degrees in the moonlight. But if we go in the shade, it would be 85 degrees. Now, how is that? It's colder in the moonlight. Think of what a refrigerator does. A refrigerator extracts heat. It pulls energy. It's not necessarily, the idea people have is that it's making it cold, like it's giving it coldness in there. But in fact, what's happening is it's extracting the heat. The moon, in the same way, people think the moon is giving a cold light, but what if it's actually pulling the energy, extracting the energy, causing things to decay? You know, in the king's chamber, and this goes into Egypt, and this goes into Arcturus Ra a while back. He did a video on a king's chamber that they had made, and where he left some cheese in there, and it didn't mold or rot or get any. Nothing happened to it. It stayed. It basically mummified because there was no energy. It was basically it was a cage that wouldn't allow any different types of energy in or out, and that cheese did what the kings and queens did. They mummified. Now, I don't want to go that far right now with this story, but let's go back to the silica. Now, in all of the food that we're given, and when I say question everything, I literally mean everything, down to the blood in your body. Why is it that we eat plants and we feel healthier? I mean, everybody knows this, but then we go and consume iron of things? It seems to have a problem. It seems to decay and age people. It seems to kill people. The rusting of it. Now, if you were to look at the elements that they're putting in the food, as I've explained in many of my videos, there's a difference between inorganic and organic compounds from the chemical standpoint. I'm not talking about an organic apple or a conventional apple. I'm talking about the specification within the chemical community of what an inorganic and an organic compound is, of having a carbon bonding to it, which allows it to be utilized by the body and used as fuel. Inside of the plant, it's running on a different fuel. When it sits in that salt, it's not eating the salt. It's not eating that salt. But when you get the food from the store, what do they always enrich everything with? There's 3 main things they enrich everything with. What are they? Iron. Look at all the boxes. Fortified with iron. It's an inorganic iron. What else is it fortified with? Calcium. Inorganic calcium. Why do people have brittle bones when they fall apart and break? Calcium. Inorganic calcium. What else do they put in our food? So you got your calcium in your milk, and you've got your iron in your cereal. Isn't that starting to give you a couple ideas, a couple understandings of what might be going on? Is your brain starting to kind of decode what I'm saying? And the other thing they do, it's sodium in everything, salt. But we know salt is like, it's not living, it's underneath your feet. It doesn't really have a real good use. But yet, there's sodium in everything, there's calcium in everything, there's iron in everything. And then they decided to throw fluoride in your water, which isn't a really great idea because the studies that have been done on that, I'm not going to get too far into that because you should already know, makes teeth brittle. Also calcifies your pineal gland so you can't see, so you have no vision. So now what is this connection to carbon? The carbon creature. They say there's a carbon tax, and the number of the beast is 666, which is 6 protons, 6 neutrons, and 6 electrons. That's carbon. What if we've been fed all of these things that create our skeletal system, our bodily system, and our blood system as carbon rich, and we've actually ingested things that made us like mortal, and we keep consuming these things? We know that the body recreates itself. It used to be thought that it never fully did, that it became pretty much scientifically proven that it happened every 7 years, and then it actually got down to something like 9 months, where people were saying, well, you know, cancer doesn't exist as a blob of cancer, but it reproduces itself. Just as even your bones are reproduced. Your stomach gets reproduced every 48 hours or even less than that. Your liver reproduces itself. It's brand new cells in your body that were recreated, because everything, just like your skin falls off and you get new skin, all your cells in your body become anew. And how is your body made? Through your blood, which becomes what is inside of your bones, the fuel for your entire system. And if you're very aware, they say your bones are made of calcium. Your bones are made of silica. At least they should be. You know what silica makes? Quartz crystal. Remember this. Crystals. Thing of the earth. Mother Earth made those things. Nobody was making crystals. It came from the earth first. And then bamboo. It's made of silica. Your body is a harmonic resonator. You have electricity running through your body. This is easy to prove, and it's been, anybody will tell you. Anybody knows this. You're an electromagnetic being. Now, when people continue to consume all of the foods and things that we're told are what's for dinner, what's for breakfast, what do you want for breakfast? Oh, here's your cereal with your extra iron shavings in it. Here's your lunch with your bloody meat, which is full of all of the garbage that they were feeding to the animals. Now you're ingesting their blood and their meat and all of that nonsense. And then you're consuming all this calcium in the dairy. Now, once again, I will remind people that the milk, unpasteurized, should have been a good idea. But it's gotten so far away from what it should be that now it actually has. To think that the milk isn't any good is to think your mother's milk is no good. But we're so far away. How are most people fed? They're not breastfed because their mothers, everything got clogged up in their mother's system. She probably couldn't breastfeed because she had so many inorganics in her. She was clogging up all of her portals, putting all of this iron under her armpits and wearing a bra that was cutting off all of her systems from releasing all of the nonsense from the body that shouldn't have been in there. This is why women have very long periods that are connected to the moon. Now, if we start and we start to flip around everything, if we start to consider, what have I always talked about? What elements? Phosphorus, magnesium. Now, if we were to trade in carbon, sodium, calcium, and iron of the inorganic variety for the phosphorescence, which means things that glow in the dark, and magnesium, which is supposed to be a nighttime element that deals with magic, magnesium, magic, magnetics. And then we throw in silica and potassium. Silica doesn't rust. Magnesium's not going to rust. Iron rusts, though. No. Think of these Asian people that I clued you into an idea of why do they all work in Silicon Valley. Why? They're Asian. They come from a place that eats bamboo. What else is in their diet? Well, at the time they were eating fish, a lot of fish, and I could get into that later. But what they were consuming was also seaweed. There's a lot of forms of seaweed. We noticed they're green. A lot of green things they were consuming. So that really a connection to dragons, green dragons, and fire-breathing dragons, and things like this. How far are we away from that? What if all of that is the truth? What if people had made? Why is it that Asian women don't age? What if they don't? I mean, what if people get to a point in their life and they've learned the entire process, and then at one point they go, okay, well, let's just move on to another system. And they're capable of doing that by transmuting and morphing their entire body, by changing their blood. They're giving themselves blood transfusions with the foods that they're eating. That literally, the blood that goes through them, and you become what you eat, if that's what you like to believe and that's what you think. Well, what if you were to start to eat the things that didn't rust? What if you started to eat the things that were of the immortal makings? You can't burn a crystal. Go throw some crystals in a flame. You ever seen one of those fireplaces? Bunch of crystals in there and you just start a fire? What happens? Nothing. They don't burn. Your body is piezoelectric. Your bones are crystals. At least they should be. But because we've been eating all of this other garbage, what our blood did was it traded in all of the quality material that we are made of, our golden blood, our crystal form structure, and started to turn us into pillars of salt, started to turn us into concrete, started to turn us into things that we weren't, to something that we weren't. So all of a sudden we're eating all of the salt, the dead salt. Why? Why would we do that? Why would we eat iron? Why would we do that? Now everything that we're putting in our mouth, everything gets traded out. If your body's reproducing itself with what you're eating, what if you could go in the other direction? Now this is so absolutely bizarre and insane and crazy, and like no one would even attempt this because you wouldn't. It would. Most people are so far away from thinking this could. This is ridiculous what you're saying, Zen. So be it. So that's why this kind of information, like, who cares? I'm just some idiot on the internet. What do I know? Who cares? But if I'm right, if I'm right, what changes? Now let's go a little farther. Let's talk about the sun. If the moon wasn't there, the moon had no impact. What can't the moon have an impact on? Crystal structure. Can't do anything to it. Neither. And the sun, what does the sun do? It continues to build something. We talk about extra oxygen. We say in the past there was more oxygen in the environment, and there were giants here. People talk about the giants. They talk about on flat Earth there were no forests. There were giant trees made of silica. What happened to those trees? What do you notice? Now, if you walk through a forest right now, you walk around and you look at a tree that's dead, you find it is decaying. There's mold and it's falling apart. But we look at these old trees and it said the wood petrified? How would that happen? Unless, of course, it was cut down and there was no moon to decay the wood, or that it was made of silica. And that silica became what? The petrified wood is actually crystals. Crystal stones. Like that, and it's not even stones, they're crystals that came out of the tree made of silica. There were giant trees because the sun was causing them to grow and inform and give information. And then something happened with the giants and the moon and a few other things. Now, I don't want to go too far with that story here. But look again. Look at the differentiation of the different cultures. How is it that people have become so melanated in some places? How is it that the Asian culture ages the way it does? Why are they in the Silicon Valley? What are all of these wars about? Is it about, as some people say, some outer space aliens and the Anunnaki and the Elohim and all of these different things? Because I know that in other stories, fables, or myths, or maybe truths, myths don't mean not true, that they just have different names for what are considered giants. What if you were to consume these things and your body were to start to grow again? Why couldn't it? If your hair and your fingernails grow because of the amount of silica you have in your system, and your bones are made of silica, then what would stop your bones from growing? What would stop your bones from growing again? What would stop anything? Collagen, which makes up your tendons, you need silica for. What if all of this, what is never included in anyone's diet, what does no doctor, no one ever tell you about, what isn't in your cereal, what isn't in your food, what do people tell you to stay away from, what does the entire system tell you not to eat? What are you not given and informed about? You've never been informed about silica. No, that's in a computer, you don't want that, that's ridiculous. Oh, you just need that for your hair, oh well. Phosphorus, does anybody ever tell you about phosphorenes and phosphorus and all of the things going on there? Or how it glows in the dark? Now let's talk about like fairies and beings and that literally have a shine and a glow and a sheen to them. Because it's in their blood. Magnesium, they never tell you about this. They never tell you about silica. They never tell you about phosphorus. Yeah, you throw potassium in there. That's probably an interesting one into the mix. That would be the trade-off. But they definitely want you to have your iron, your calcium, and your fluoride, and your sodium. Everything carbon, right? Switch that iron molecule and that carbon-based system from being a beast to being an immortal, which no longer would be the atomic structure around iron, but the atomic structure around magnesium and potassium, which is MGK, magic, which is considered nighttime elements, get stuck outside of the cell body. Look into my earlier work. Because of spherocytis and erythrocytis, look in those two works, and then start to put all of this together. And then on top of that, throw in this idea of growing and giants and breathing more and what oxygen does to the blood system. As I've talked to people about getting rid of all of the iron that's in your blood. Anti-aging. If the body was already built to be highly intelligent like a tree, you know what a tree does? It feeds itself with its leaves. So think if your urine is your food the same way that tree feeds itself with its leaves. Now you start putting yourself back into yourself as you continue to clean your blood, and then start to include the things I just spoke about. You could turn yourself into an immortal giant. Or this is just a crazy story. But isn't it interesting? All of the names of the places, the kings and the queens, and what these temples are made of, what the pyramids might have been made of. I mean, we kind of know what they're made of, but what the king's chamber was for, I've done videos on this. I told you there's about 400 videos that I took down because it was just too much information for people. But I've left a bunch up that are pretty solid in giving you a good base into the comprehension of what's been going on this plane, this realm, this planet, whatever, wherever we are. But think about these giants and these trees and what you are and what you should be. I mean, people talk about the light inside of you as the entire system lights up. You should be able to see with your third eye. Well, what if you could see in the dark? What does this have to do with pirates and gold? What does this have to do with these elements that literally they were using in the proletariat to keep themselves from getting sick during times of great sickness and plagues and things? They were using elements in tonic water, and if you look at tonic water, it glows. And if you put light on something, lightness takes away darkness. And so when you think of all of the bacterias, the word bacteria comes from Bacchus, or the bacteria. It kills it or removes it from the system because it's light and it glows. And if you have a light and you shine it into a prism or a crystal, like your pineal gland should be, like your bones, the different harmonics your body would play in your organs, a crystalline temple with organs throughout it and a shining beacon of light, like a lighthouse that's all inside of you. Is your pineal gland, your kidneys, your liver, your organs, your bones, your crystal skull, all made out of silica. But then again, what do I know? This is just some silly story, but we'll see. We'll see if I do a part 2 and 3 on this. But hopefully that cracked open your dome a little bit, and maybe you can extrapolate a little more out of that for yourself. So there's some really interesting things about what these wars might have been, if they really occurred the way most people think, or what the Palo Santos has to do with things, with the holy wood and the holy trees, and what the magicians have been doing and what they are. Hope you enjoyed that little story. Talk soon, y'all. Remember, I am Tron, the immortal, organic, digital, electric, silica shaman.